Hi everybody, I am really pleased to introduce you to the Good Finance Framework, which the sponsors of WIBF's Accelerating Change Together 4-year programme have made possible. Creating the Good Finance Framework involved one-to-one interviews with 44 women who reflected on their own career and described their headwinds and tailwinds. We also held 2 roundtables which featured 35 women. In these interviews and roundtables, we intentionally focused on recruiting women for functions that had the highest shares of males, front office, income generating roles, and separately women who worked with more balanced shares of males in compliance and communications. I'm going to focus today on summarising the Good Finance Framework, which brings together the dominant themes raised by these women. If they described a headwind, an action is suggested to overcome it, and for tailwinds, an action is described that can artificially mimic their experiences to allow other women accelerate their careers and for us to retain the missing middle. There are 2 things about the Good Finance Framework that I want you to note. First, some things may not be new to you. We think that it will help progress if what is being currently done in firms is evaluated for effectiveness, as the women that I met reported mixed experiences of exposure to D&I initiatives. Second, for the most part, the undercurrent of the Good Finance Framework is moving the actions that help with the inclusion of talented women from compliance to culture. Strikingly, a decent proportion of the Good Finance Framework centres around the need for managers to understand the value of including women, rather than quotas, audits and monitoring. Quotas, audits and monitoring are very necessary blunt instruments that has yielded much of the progress we see today for women in financial and professional services. They are still needed now, but the final gender convergence needs more. The final gender convergence relies on managers who are attuned to the benefits of including all talent, including women, and a move away from structures such as presenteeism that do not serve business well. It also needs a movement away from signals that often allow someone get promoted, get a pay rise, and get opportunities that are uncorrelated with skills, talent, and ability. For example, talking too loudly and too long. Something I will try very hard not to do in this video. So let's run through the Good Finance Framework. This is a new approach to inclusion in financial and professional services firms that can help all genders thrive at work. Do notice that in the Good Finance Framework, every letter has a meaning and carries an action. Let's get going. G is for groupthink. Our research found that women are being talked over, being judged differently, and ultimately women's ideas are being discarded. Of course, what is being described is groupthink, and this is bad for business. An action to overcome groupthink is to audit meetings with this phenomenon and give managers tools to run meetings in a manner that is likely to circumvent groupthink. O is for opportunities. We currently monitor pay gaps. Some companies monitor promotions, but of course what determines these outcomes are the opportunities that are given to employees to grow. The Good Finance Framework asks that firms get managers to audit the opportunities they give to each team member. This improves saliency and allows a manager to address any inequitable behaviour. On-ramps and off-ramps. What was really striking about the interviews that I did was in all cases for women who had been on maternity leave, their onboarding and offboarding process was left to one manager. This important moment in the middle of a woman's career is too important to trust to one individual. Firms need to consider redesigning on and off ramps so they guarantee a certain level of experience. The D in Good Finance Framework is for difference. Many of the women I met were forging careers beyond traditional career paths as a means of coping with traditional career paths being blocked because of cronyism. Firms can reflect on if and why women in their organisation need to forge innovative career paths. But of course, innovation is really good for business. It should be nurtured and encouraged as a route to better business. F is for flexibility. Flexibility is still viewed in financial services as a way to get better work-life balance. It is hoped that some of this stigma will have changed because of COVID-19 lockdown. If we are really building back better, it should be recognised that there is really good evidence that flexibility actually enhances productivity. Conversations need to be had that align a more flexible working style with the operations of the business. I is for incentives. Many women noted that rewards in finance are still too individualistic. Women emphasised that promotion criteria had little to do with the ability to lead people, causing bad habits of familiarity bias, similarity bias, and cronyism to survive. The Good Finance Framework calls for firms to include a team performance component for managers in their incentives package. Adding managers' skin to the game will ensure that the most talented people get opportunities over those with the tightest affinity. N is for networking. We all know the value of external networks, and this is even more clear for colleagues in financial and professional services. The women I met noted that many of the networking opportunities available do not open career advancing opportunities for them. There's too much talking. The Good Finance Framework asks firms to shape an external networking platform so it brings together talented women with gatekeepers who can give them opportunities outside their own organisation. A is for advocates. It is no surprise that an advocate is not a mentor. The women I met discussed whether we can artificially recreate matching with advocates within the firm. The jury was out. We are recommending that some work is done to understand what determines a successful advocacy programme that has buy-in and momentum. N is for norms. It was highlighted by many that different norms exist for men and women in performance in financial and professional services. The women I met described that women are always perceived as either excellent or awful, with no room for being in between or dropping the ball. 22 of the women I met described experiences of mediocre men whose insecurities caused them to hire their friends, play office politics, and block talented colleagues' progression. Other differences in norms identified including how mistakes are treated and luck attribution. The Good Finance Framework encourages firms to identify the different norms that face men and women in their organisation and put in steps to mitigate them. Men and women should not have differential treatment. Finally, the Good Finance Framework ends by emphasising the importance of having competence and empathy for managers in financial and professional services. In our work, it has been emphasised that there is often trade-offs across these domains. Research has shown that soft skills, i.e. developing an empathetic management style, are more malleable than hard skills like competence. Firms can give themselves a competitive edge by investing in the soft skills of their manager, given that the leaders of the future will need heart as well as brains. And this gives us the CE to end good finance.